eventually you get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
What's up, everybody? I'm Taylor Olmstead, and I want to welcome you back to No Repeat, a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every occasion life throws at you. Joining me are my co-hosts, Tyler Reed.
Crawled in my skin. These wounds, they'll never heal.
And Sean Evans.
Did anybody else pick Devo for the top of their Trump administration bracket? Because I got absolutely ruined this week. I figured she was going to make it to the last one on board, but it looks like Ajat Pai will be the winner, which is like really just outstanding to me. Like, he was pretty controversial at the beginning. I didn't expect him to get this deep.
Well, this podcast isn't about bureaucrats who have lost their jobs. Tyler, what is it about?
All right, folks, this week, find the perfect song for your sad song night, submitted by friend of the show, Ben Pentecost. If you want to submit your own challenges, you can DM us on Instagram or Twitter at NoRepeatPod, or you can send us a big, long email or short email. Any size email will do, at NoRepeatPod@gmail.com. Thanks so much.
So this challenge comes from our friend Ben, my former roommate and former coworker, and it comes from when he and I used to work at a summer camp together. And every once in a while, we just needed to kind of have a low-key night, and so we would sit on the porch of our staff cabin and listen to sad songs. And everybody else is off, doing their thing, fraternizing with the female staff members or whatever. And we would just kind of have a more introspective evening, sitting and listening to some sadder songs that don't maybe bring the party, but have some emotional weight to them. And I was excited to do this week, just as a break from some of the upbeat stuff we've been doing. But then it was a very sad and upsetting week, which made it very cathartic to listen to a lot of sad music this week. And boy, howdy, did I do that. I busted out all the old favorites, some emo, some singer-songwriter, some classic stuff. I was mainlining the Smiths for an entire afternoon. I was just going for, what is the saddest, heaviest stuff that I've got that's also, musically interesting and compelling. Because you can tell a really sad song on an acoustic guitar ballad, but I wanted something that had a little more to it than that. I didn't want it to just be my grandma died and my dog got ran over and my wife left me, and Sean's critique of every sad country song, basically. So I wanted something with a different kind of depth to it this week, I think. But what about you guys? What were you going for?
Well, I got through most of my Dave Matthews cataloged, and I was really thinking about picking "In It Rain," and then I was like, I can't. I feel like too many people have positive memories of Dave Matthews' catalog. So honestly, I went really topical this week, and we'll get there when we talk about it, and I got a lot of feels.
Tyler, do you have a lot of feels this week?
I choose to stave off my emotions by sort of not directly embracing them until a moment of vulnerability later down the line. So I tried to push this off as long as I could, though I was the first one to put my choice in. I think my choice was most reflective upon the person who had submitted it. Thanks, Ben. Which I was like, what song would they want to listen to? But generally, I think I was also just trying to think about a song or an artist, or the entirety of a night that would consist of these songs. And I think there's a lot of different ways that you can convey sadness. It doesn't have to be sort of melancholy. There can be like parts where you're like, oh, that's so sad, but also you can be uplifted, or you can feel empowered in some way. I feel like there's kind of different ways you can kind of couple the idea of like sad songs into like a lot of genres and ideas, right? And I was also just trying to think of songs that weren't necessarily of the current era, like the most like within the last like few years. I was trying to think a little bit further back. If I had found like a really good like ballad song, like from like maybe even like classic rock or like something in particular that really struck me, I would have chosen something like that. Because I feel like last time when we went for a song that was like kind of sad, I chose Snail Mail, and I was like, well, I don't really want to kind of repeat myself. I wanted to kind of reinvent or kind of keep it fresh in a different way. I didn't want to kind of like do the expected thing a little bit this week. So branched out a bit.
See, I was concerned about that, about doing the expected thing, because I do think I kind of picked an artist that you would expect for this, but
And how?
It goes to what Tyler was saying about different kinds of sadness, because one of the things that I'm like growing to appreciate as I get older in life and go through my own journey with mental illness is that there are a lot of different flavors of being upset and being sad, and a good songwriter, I think, can zero in on a hyper specific like emotional state and not just this is sad because it is sad and it is sad, which, you know, there's a place for those songs, but I didn't really want a song that you would like play at the end of an episode of Grey's Anatomy to like drive home the sad moment. You know, I wanted something that was a bit more specific, less melodramatic.
Sure, and I feel like the advent of like the bedroom recording situation has really made it much easier for more people to tell their stories in different ways. So I feel like we're seeing a lot more people writing songs that feel much more personal because they can write directly to their audience in a way that it feels much more authentic and real. Where I feel like when you're doing it for like a producer or whatever, you kind of have to like glitz it up a little bit, or you have to, you know, like make it more theatrical. Whereas I feel like in the current era, people can just write authentically themselves in some capacity, right? So I feel like, regarding your choice, I feel like you chose someone who perfectly represents the era that we live in right now. So
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to get much deeper into that because I'll have stuff to say about your song. But no, I think that as I've grown older, I think my appreciation of sad music and the complexity of sad music has gotten better. Like, I feel like in the past couple years, I've really tried to take some of the old sad music that I like and tried to reinvent it so I could like justify why I like it. I think so last year I picked Only a Shadow, which is a sad song. The cover the original song was by Cleaners from Venus. And like about 3 weeks after I picked that song, my cat died. And I was like really into that song when my cat died. And now it comes up on my like favorite playlist all the time. And I have to kind of skip it because I've like associated it with that. And I mean, it doesn't happen. It happens to be coincidental that the song is called Only a Shadow and I had a black cat. So it's like a little bit there. It's like a little pointed to me. Like, it came on today when I was running and I was like, this sucks. I mean, it's clearly about a breakup, but like just the fact that it's like, I don't know, I lost my cat and I was really into that song and just listening to it like way, like so into it. And then it happened. I was like, God, this is terrible. But like, I think just as you get older, it's like, I'm not explaining anything to anybody. I'm just speaking like a bumbling idiot here.
No,
like,
I think you are making a really good point. That like sometimes a song latches itself to an experience, and especially sad songs can really do that.
Right. And I feel like we were talking about something the other day, like when you're a kid and bad stuff happens, it doesn't seem like that real to you. Not only just because you like don't have a memory of it that much, but it's like as you get older, you have like a lifetime to accumulate fears and sadness. And like, I want to believe that like eventually at some time that it becomes like a little sweet, you know, like not everything that's sad is, I feel like I'm about to reach that point in my adulthood where like, I feel like I was like forced to confront it when I lost my cat. I'm just going to keep talking about that. Sorry.
That's fine. You should.
Like where it's like now when I think about all the, like I've been very fortunate thus far in my life to have not lost one of my parents. And like she was the first living being in my home that I like lost. So when I think about her, it's sad, but it's like a positive sad and not in like a distant way of like a grandparent or something. It's just like it was real. Like I woke up and there she was. And I don't know. It's just like now a month on when Sarah and I talk about it, it's like, it has a different feeling. Like, it's sad because I'm like, oh, there, you know, I miss that little cat, you know, like, why the hell did you have us buy all that litter and expensive food for you to die 1 week into it? You know, like what kind of jackass cat does that? But at the same time, it's kind of like, that's what I mean. Like it kind of turns into that now where it's like, you couldn't finish it. You couldn't just wait until the food was eaten. Like, And so, but that's what I mean. Like, it kind of turns into like a funny kind of sadness, or like, and I don't know. I think that's why this challenge was like really, I don't want to say fun for me, but it was like interesting for me, because I'm like, I feel like I'm finally growing into my adult feelings. So thanks, Ben.
I totally feel that feeling of when, like, kind of like you're younger, you're not knowing, like, things can be sad, but they can only be so sad, right? Like, I distinctly remember I had a family friend who had a weak heart, and she died very early. Like I was like 5-ish, and I just remember she came over and she would play Sonic with me, and she would like watch me play, and like I really liked being around her, and it was like, you know, like obviously it was more crushing for my dad and my mom, who were like friends with her.
Oh God.
And like, you know, because they were like a couple, and they kind of just stopped hanging out with like that guy that he was friends with. They kind of like grew apart anyway, and so like those, like, that friend group just kind of like evaporated in a way. And so like, of course, I'm like, I'm going to like remember that forever. But I'm like, had I known her now,
right,
and had those experiences, it would have had a different impact.
But
like, it was only just happy, pleasant things, and just like one day she was just gone.
Yeah,
you know. So I totally get that. Ooh. Anyway.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, we knew this was going to be kind of a heavy one, so feel free, listener, to take a break in the middle of this one if you need to, because I'm sure it's only going to get heavier from here.
All right, Taylor, what was your trauma?
I mean, if we're all unloading some trauma
we're
here
out our dead.
in the opening segment, at least for this week, my feeling is kind of like more internal. I don't know that I've talked about it a lot on here, but I struggle with anxiety and depression, and, you know, I'm getting help for that, and I'm on medication, and, you know, there is nothing to worry about. Like, I'm treating it and it's going to be fine. But one of the things that I have found over the course of that journey, especially before I realized what it was, is that I just felt sad for no conceivable reason. And I would catch myself in these moments where it didn't feel right to feel the way that I was feeling, and that only made me feel worse. And there's something so like frustrating about being trapped inside your own mind in that way, and just like being stuck in this feeling that is not appropriate to the situation, or feeling something that may be appropriate for the situation but for the wrong reasons. And so I found myself a lot, especially as a teenager, like just sitting in my room alone listening to sad music, because it was the only way that I knew how to deal with it, because, you know, I didn't know what was going on. And it's not to say that, like, you know, I had a bad childhood or anything like that. Like, I think there just wasn't a lot of understanding around like non-severe mental health issues when we were growing up. Like, I didn't know a lot of people, or anybody really, that like went to counseling when we were growing up, even though we had plenty of friends who had very difficult upbringings who probably should have been in counseling at that point. So I don't know, like, it's been really interesting to look back on that part of my life now with all of these like tools for managing it in place, and almost like feeling this melancholy of like, boy, if only I had done this sooner.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the sadness that I was thinking about a lot recently.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we've had conversations like that before, where it's like, I don't know if all three of us have, but maybe we have with you, Taylor. I mean, all of us are Eagle Scouts. We've all like come through that system, and I feel like Taylor and I have had conversations where it's like, I feel like that's one thing that like scouting as a program kind of misses out on, is you like kind of capture a group of youth and they're like late adolescence, and there's basically like zero talk about like, what do you do if you feel sad and alone, or if you feel like you're depressed, or like, and that's okay. And it's not just like saying that that's okay, like, you know, like you like an insulting that's okay, like everyone feels sad, boys and girls. Like, it's like, honestly, like that there's
validation in that,
you know, yeah, that there's validation in that, and that if you feel that way, that you can get help, and that it's not stigmatized. Like, you should be able to do that. And that's not a critique of the program, but at the same time, I feel like if you're going to go after all the things that they go after, if you're going to be like your goal is to be like a holistic thing, like you could include that. That would be okay. You know, like that's a...
Oh, I 100% agree, because I think, not to get completely too far on a Boy Scout rabbit hole here, but I know the context that you and I had that conversation in, at least one of the times, is when a scout that I knew died very young in a motorcycle accident. And I, at that point in my life, had been to more funerals in a Boy Scout uniform than I had in a suit. Because being exposed to so many other families, you're just exposed to a lot more loss.
Yeah.
And I saw kids die too young. I saw parents die too young. Scout leaders, like, I went to a lot of funerals there for a while. And there was never any real toolkit for how to deal with that. Like, how do you deal with the loss of a friend's parent at 16? Like, there was nothing in that system to teach us. And so,
right.
yeah, that is a kind of sadness that we just never really learned how to deal with. And I feel like as you get older, you start to, but like, it doesn't stop being hard, of course.
Like there's more to understanding how loss and sadness works than just watching the after school special or like seeing, The Fault in Our Stars or something. You know what I mean? Like if those are the two things that you're learning how to deal with loss or sadness about, then there's like something really wrong with how we get through, like, as a society, helping each other cope with basically the inevitable.
But even still, hey John Green, thanks for writing about stuff for children or for young adults.
If only more people did that, so all the weight of mental health and cancer didn't have to rest on you.
But one thing I will say about the Scouts is at least they taught us basic civics and how our government works, which is, turns out, anyway.
Yeah, oh boy. Speaking of, maybe we should start with Sean's pick on that note.
You sure you want to roll with this one right off the bat? You want to go down this route?
I mean, I don't think there's a good place to start with any of these songs. They're all pretty sad, so just go right ahead.
Okay. All right. So this week I chose Busy Being Born by Middle Class Rut.
Maybe I sacrifice to feel like I'm alive. Penniless, it's all the same. At least I'll die with the name. Right there.
So this album came out 10 years ago in 2010, probably a little bit like 9.5 years ago. This actually wasn't the lead track of the album. It was actually, it was the next one. It was track 2. This is track 1.
New Low was the lead single.
Yeah, New Low. And that was a pretty big hit.
It was everywhere for a minute.
Like, I don't know. I saw these guys at Warped Tour. Yeah, and it's only a 2-piece band. It probably not anymore, but it's only a 2-piece band. And I remember I listened to the hell out of this album. I think at the time, I guess to like contextualize like why this song makes me feel sad, because it's kind of an angry song, right? Like it's not necessarily that pleasant. And the reason that, like, so 2010, we're 2 years into Barack Obama's presidency. The Tea Party has really started to take over here. There's like a huge conservative backlash. We're 2 years into an economic downturn and recession. It's looking bleak for millennials everywhere. And basically all we're getting messages all the time are, why is your generation so crappy? This whole country's going to crap, and it's all everybody else's fault except mine. So we want to have an amendment to the Constitution be that we need to balance the budgets, which is basically like a slap in the face, along with like just a litany of like overstepping socially conservative dogma that just got placed everywhere. And these voices just got raised, and it was like, what the hell is happening here? So in this song, lyrically speaking, just to start, there is like a lot of sarcastic lyrics. That's one thing that's like about this band. Like they do kind of like step into the other person's shoes sarcastically and talk about their viewpoint a lot. And I don't think so much for the verse, but definitely so much for the chorus, but for the verse, it is very much like this. But I think to talk about the music too, like it's a catchy song for me. Like I think about like the fact that this is just two people, a drummer and a guitar player. There's just like a wall of sound that just comes at you. And when I saw them live, it was like the same way. It's just like, how do you make so much out of like just a couple of things is astounding, because I feel like it has a little bit more kind of what other two-piece bands like the Black Keys and the White Stripes and I think Death from Above 1979 might be a closer, like, in the same level as this, but it's just like boom, like it's kind of just always there all the time. But I think like that's one thing that makes this song really powerful. Now, why did I pick it for this week? Honestly, on Wednesday I didn't know what I was going to put in here. I guess if you're listening to this now, 2 Wednesdays ago, I didn't know what I was going to put in for this. But after all of the madness that went down this week, I can tell you that this is insane. That like one person, the President of the United States, can go ahead and basically promote the overthrow of his own like government that he swore to protect is absolutely crazy. Now, when I was watching this, living just outside of DC, and I mean like outside, I mean I can looking out my window right now and I can see the Capitol Dome. It did not surprise me that the government of the United States continued to work, even though some right-wing extremists were able to break into the Capitol. It did not surprise me, because the inertia of America is greater than however many thousand extremists wanted to show up and decide that today was the day that their voice was finally going to get heard. Not to mention that they're probably the shittiest revolutionaries that ever lived. So, like, just the fact that we are 20 days out at the time of this recording, probably less, from a peaceful transition of power which brought Donald Trump into office, and then we have to go through all this, is just beyond me. That, like, the people that benefit from the peaceful transition of power and continuation of the status quo more than anybody else feel the need to go up on the Capitol, which is basically the beacon for them to continue what they believe. Just look at Mitch McConnell and attack it and act like it wasn't gonna, like, there was something wrong, is beyond me. But maybe that's just because I'm an insane person who has a master's in political science. I don't want to keep trotting that one out there like, oh, look at me, I'm so smart and academic. But at the same time, are you dumb? Did you really think that you were going to get away with that? Like, all these arrests are happening, like they got that guy in Arkansas. I shouldn't say they got him. He turned himself in without a lawyer, which goes to show how smart he is. And then here we are. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I needed to pick a song this week that made me sad, because it reminds me all the time whenever I see, let me just give one example. You guys probably saw it because you're intelligent people, but there was a picture going around of a flag that had on it an explosion background with Donald Trump standing on a tank holding an American flag. You do not own that symbol. You do not get to say that the American flag stands for what your extremist views are and your QAnon craziness. It doesn't stand for that. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is who the flag stands for. Every social progress, every time that we don't have an official national language or religion, is for what America stands for. All the words on front of the Statue of Liberty about bringing everybody here who doesn't have a home, about being a place of acceptance, is what the American flag stands for. From the person that drinks light beer on Sundays and watches NASCAR, to the person who's going to temple, that is who the American flag stands for. And if you think that it stands for your little bleak cause...
When Sean first put this in, I had to, like, think about it for a second, because I was like, middle class rut, they're so angry. But then I thought about the week that we just had, and I listened to this song again a few times, and I remembered where I was when all of that was going down, which is I was in my living room watching it happen on CNN with my boyfriend, and dreading the minutes and hours to come as the coverage started circulating, getting picked up on more networks, the internet started finding out about it, the misinformation started spreading, and all of that happened. Of course it happened, because that's how this happens. You know, I work in the communications industry. I have a pretty good sense of the process of what happens during a national tragedy at this point, unfortunately. And so as I saw all of this potentially unfolding over the next days and hours, I just couldn't handle it. And so I went outside to do some yard work, and I blasted some Fugazi and ripped a bunch of shrubs out of my backyard. Looking back on that experience and thinking about this song, I feel like there is like a sad rage to this that feels appropriate for this week. It's the kind of sadness where you're so sad that you don't know whether to cry or to scream. And that's kind of how I felt watching everything that happened this week. And it has not been very good for any of us, but it's been especially challenging in my household as friends and family members espouse conspiracy-adjacent theories, and we attempt to tamp down our own anxious news reading habits and try to just get on with life without refreshing Twitter every 5 seconds. And, you know, it's the kind of crisis that like acutely plays into my own mental health issues and hits really close to home with people in my life. And so a song like this that can just like bring out that crying, screaming rage is definitely what I needed this week. And revisiting Middle Class Rut felt very appropriate because, like Sean said, they're a band that's all about that. They're a band that's about looking at the higher level macro issues, like literal macroeconomic issues through hard rock. And, you know, that's kind of the place that I've been in for the last 5 days, is just very angrily reading very intellectual things about how horrible this could get over the next 6 weeks, and, you know, trying to mentally prepare myself for that eventuality, even though in reality I should probably like go outside and get some fresh air and not read another article on the New Yorker.
So I like the song. Let's just start with that. There we go. At a base level, enjoy the song. I was like quickly like Googling like the difference between sad and anger, and I feel like the two are in a way it can mix pretty easily, right? And I feel like just because the song is sort of like has an aggression to it, or it's not even, I won't even say it's necessarily aggressive. They're not really like, I mean, like they're screaming. It's kind of like a lot to like decompose, to separate these emotions out specifically. But like, I do feel like it's completely legitimate to be like, I am sad, and that doesn't have to be like just crying. You can be like, I just feel like there's just like a primary example of like what sad can be, and I do think this is a good example of a song that I feel like does teeter towards anger in a way through its aggression, but I don't necessarily think that it is an angry song. It can be. I can see it as a sad song. Anyway, great. This is a dynamic, beautiful song. Heavy. It hasn't aged at all. Did you say this was 20?
This is 2010. That's what makes it sad, because in 2010, this was made in probably 2009, and it's still relevant in 2020.
They only thought it was bad then.
That's what I mean. Like, it's sad because we should have made it past this, or at least made some progress. Like, don't get me wrong. It seems like good protest songs kind of always manifest themselves, and like they always like kind of have a lifespan. But like
a lot of the problems, the specific problems they talk about on that record are still our major problems in 2021.
And I don't know. I guess that's just like this week. It just made me so sad because like it does not bring me any sense of peace. I don't like. I watched the Washington Post video of that woman that was shot by the Capitol Police.
Ashley Babbitt.
Horrible. Yeah, Ashley Babbitt. Horrible. Air Force veteran, served our country, like business owner out in California, like, you know, like no one is. I don't know. I don't think anybody really, honestly, if you're of like. I don't know if you share my beliefs, is happy about that. Same way with the officer of the Capitol Police that, you know, later lost his life from the injuries that he got on duty, or the 3 other people that lost their lives due to medical emergencies because they were up there. No one is happy about this. It's sad. It's sad to think that there is a group of people out there that believe that they are marginalized in this country, that are
right, because you have to think about where that's coming from, because you can just write it off, but in some world there is a reason why they feel this way, and in a way that is not being met, in a way that they are somehow being manipulated or lied to, basically, right? I mean, that's the gist of it, and you can't be like you could blame them, you could say it's their fault, but there's only so much like blame you can do before it's like there's a structural problem here that we are not addressing and refuse to address.
Right. That's right, and it's like it's also sad when we look at this summer's like Black Lives Matter stuff and just the sheer show of force that was used against those protesters that was nowhere near even showing up for this. Like, that is also sad that, like, people that are actually peacefully protesting, there's every police force within is there, and the president is condemning them for having just atrocities happen against people that look like them, people that are them, people that, you know, love them. Everybody's involved in this. I don't know. It's sad. I don't. Maybe that's why I just like. I'm sad for this song. Like, this is a sad song, but I shouldn't. I want to end on like a high note that like I am optimistic that in the future that we can make changes, because in 2010 we didn't think that the Supreme Court was going to uphold and on a federal level uphold gay marriage, and they did. Like, we made a lot of progress, and basically up until 2016 we were going on for me, I think we were on like a pretty good track. We were like, our economy was going, we were like, you know, making the banner of freedom encompass more and more people. We were getting there. We got our problems. I'm not going to say that we don't. We have stuff to work on. Every place does. That doesn't make us better. It doesn't make us worse. Everybody has stuff to work on. That's called progress. That's how progress works. But like, then it stopped. Let's get back on this track. Like, let's be optimistic. Like, 2020 can be the year where we have the end of a pandemic and where we start being a place of like peace again.
Well, moving from the very political to the very personal, if it's all right with Tyler, I think I'll go next.
You can do whatever you want.
This week, I chose Funeral by Phoebe Bridgers.
Wishing I was someone else, feeling sorry for myself when I remembered someone's kid is dead. Jesus Christ, I'm so blue all the time, and that's just how I feel, always have, and I always will.
So Phoebe Bridgers is, of course, the sad song poet laureate of our times. She's a singer-songwriter, and this is from her debut solo album from 2017, Stranger in the Alps. This is a track that doesn't get as much love for Phoebe as some of her other songs, like Motion Sickness, for example. But this is the song that really sold me on her, because it speaks to me about a kind of sadness, and particularly, as I alluded to at the top of the show, a kind of mental illness that feels very familiar to me. It's a story song, it's a ballad, and it opens by her saying that she's singing at a funeral tomorrow for a kid a year older than her. And the first stanza is about thinking about that funeral. But then all of the other stanzas of the verses are about her own sadness. And then the chorus is this just gut-wrenching, like borderline belting, Jesus Christ, I'm so blue all the time. And that's just how I feel, always have, and I always will. And that feels so real to me that when you are in a depressive state, it feels like you have always been that way. Like, it is inescapable and it goes on forever and you will always feel that way. And in the verses, she kind of counteracts that with these examples of like specific moments where her depression like reaches out and grabs her that feel also equally real, especially in the second verse, where she says, last night I blacked out in my car and I woke up in my childhood bed, wishing I was someone else, feeling sorry for myself when I remembered someone's kid is dead. And that alludes to what I was talking to at the top of the show of like, when you are depressed, when you are anxious, when you have a mental health problem, you sometimes feel bad about feeling bad because, you know, somebody's kid just died, or, you know, there's some kind of national emergency, or, you know, at least you're not a starving child in a poor country. But the thing that I like about this song is it validates that, like, your sadness is still there and you're allowed to feel that. And I think the kind of like soft, reassuring voice that Phoebe uses, combined with the dissonant guitar drones and the electric violin, it gives the ebbing and the flowing of like a chronic depression in a way that I just feel is really powerful. This could have just been a simple acoustic guitar ballad, but by beefing up the production, by adding some layers, I feel like she brings so much more catharsis to it that every time I listen to it, I'm just like sucked down into it, like sinking into a really soft mattress. It's the kind of song that I can't like get up out of. I have to sit here and listen to the whole thing and feel the whole thing for the full, whatever it is, 4.5 minutes.
I completely understand why Tyler is in love with Phoebe Bridgers. I mean, like, not only on like a spiritual level, but also on like a physical level too. I get it.
Oh yeah, she's adorable.
Yeah, I completely understand. I have yet to see her until this pick was like put in. And he basically like whispers under his breath all the time on this show. Deep listeners have probably heard it. This is, you know, like every time, like
listen for it.
He's adorable. And I get it. I get why he feels this way. Lana Del Rey. I understand. But but no, Taylor, you're totally right. I think I'll talk about the song first. I love this is on the recording electric violin, but on the live video there's a lap steel. So I just want to so I'll be referencing the live video from the basement sessions with a lap steel. I think that having that lap steel sound adds such a down, sad feeling to stuff. Like, just because it's almost like the lap steel has that like wailing kind of thing to it, which also adds like a nice texture to, along with the acoustic, which basically serves as not only like, you know, the melody or whatever, but also serves as a percussive thing. So you get like the two-piece band. Like, this song live, the live performance and the record sounds so big for being like, nothing is overdriven. It's just like a couple of things together in her voice. And it's just lovely. It's a great song. I'm going to have to go listen to a bunch of Phoebe Bridgers this week just to get back on this, even though I don't really want to be sad right now. I need to keep my spirits up and keep going into 2021 strong. But like I said, it's the happy sadness. I'm growing as a person. To what you said, Taylor, I think that's really interesting because I feel like there's a lot of like negative feedback that people get all the time when you're like, I don't feel good. And people are like, well, at least you have food, you know? And it's like, thanks for totally delegitimizing my feelings under this advice of, well, it's not that. And like, I can be guilty of this as much as anybody else. Maybe on more topics, on different topics than like, you know, like depression or something, along those lines. But like, yeah, no. And it's weird that we do that. Like, how you can like try and help somebody in that way, like totally delegitimize how they feel. And like being conscious of that is something that I need to work on. Maybe I don't want to say like everybody needs to work on, but it's like listening. It's like when you learn about microaggressions. And then you hear what you've been saying your whole life and you're like, oh God, oh no, oh God. And then you start like really like kind of, I don't want to say policing what you say, but you start considering what you say. You start listening and thinking before you just like blot it out. And maybe that's like the lesson here. But also I think too, what makes this song beautiful is that it was like, I think there's everybody probably if you don't like, wow, this is, you're probably really lucky. I'm saying like that you're like, you know, I just feel like I can't think of anybody that didn't lose somebody when they were a kid, whether it be a family member or a friend or somebody in high school or like, you know, like, I don't know. It just like takes a toll on them and they can think like, and the thing is that you can hear somebody during this time that probably said this to you. Well, at least you're still here, you know? Well, at least you have the memories of them. And it's like, I don't need you to tell me that I'm fine. I need you to tell me nothing. I need you to just listen to what's coming out of my mouth and just tell me that it's okay to feel sad. You know, like I don't even need you to tell me anything. I just need you to listen. I feel like that's kind of like what 2020 really was all about, was like listening. You know, like, okay, great. I know you have the answer. But what I'm saying is, can you just shut up and listen for a second? You just like really just shut the hell up and listen for a second. And that's why I think this is, not only is it a beautiful song, but I feel like the meaning is deeper, even so that, because I feel like when you're young, you know, like if I ever have kids and this ever happens, it's like, not only do you want to like talk, not only do you want to have these conversations. And I feel like as you're an adult, it's like easier because you have memories that you can talk about with them, but it's like just listening to young people about, because this is like a new experience. Like everybody's going to have that first time, whether it be like your goldfish or whether it's like a parent or a sibling or something, or somebody that's really close to you, or, like it's tragic, and being there in those moments is like hero's work, I guess. There's like a joke they talk about it on Bob's Burgers in a way, where the episode where Louise becomes principal for a day and they hire a replacement for Mr. Fraun, who's the counselor, and the replacement for the counselor is the principal's like brother-in-law or something, who's clearly like a deadbeat. So they have this like assembly, and one of the questions is like, this girl stands up and she's like, my hamster died and I feel like it's my fault. And like the guy is just like totally put on the spot. Like he has like no idea what to say. So he kind of like coughs and like, next question. And like, it's just like, I feel like so much of the time, we just do that. Like, how
about them Bears?
Wow, football. Right. Like you just, how's school going, kid? Christmas, Santa good to you? Like it's just kind of like hard to talk about these conversations, and really it's like, you don't really need to talk, right? Just listen. That's right.
It's a very hard lesson to learn. And sometimes someone's just complaining or is upset about something, and you don't have to try to solve their problems.
That's right.
That's something I've had to learn the hard way. Sometimes
that's a very masculine thing to do. Like,
people
come to you with your problems, and you're like, let me help you with this. And it's like, shut up.
No.
Shut the hell up.
Don't. Still learning to be better about that. But regardless, so just to be clear, I am invested in the Phoebe Bridgers cinematic universe and the grand arc of her narrative. Less specifically, because honestly, her best, my favorite songs are obviously like the singles, which are like the most like upbeat, and like obviously the singles because she needs to sell albums, right? And which the rest of the album are incredibly melancholy and dramatic pieces of acoustic folk rock, folk indie singer-songwriter music, right? So like I've actually listened to very little of her music because frankly it's very sad, rightly so. I don't know how someone has that much sadness inside of their soul, but that's, somebody's got to do it, I guess. But I do enjoy her antics, like dressing up in a suit and playing at the White House in like a green screen. Very entertaining. I'm here for the narrative. Anyway, obviously, at a base level, sad song. Great. We cleared over the basic level of this. Like I kind of was already saying, though, like, what is great about her work is that it does feel deeply personal, specific, and really is a song that is able to connect with you in a way that certainly has touched the people her age and the people probably that are growing up listening to her, right? I think that's a great sort of like just in general a great person to have there to be a voice for people, right? And I feel like that's been really great for this generation of kids that are growing up connected directly to the internet. I feel like there's so many things that I feel like I was like pushed out of mentally because I was like a dude or whatever. But like if I found like communities online or found music that I feel like I resonate with, I would feel like I would be a completely different person. I would be changed fundamentally. And I feel like this is just like having these artists that can speak to these very intimate and personal experiences is great, incredible. That being said, Phoebe also just has a generally like a great vision. I mean, like Taylor was saying, the production on this is great. That's why I think she started like a record label, and she's like produced like a bunch of other songs for other people, because like she like even this, and like you listen to like her singles, Kyoto, incredible single. Like it's honestly probably the best songs of last year. Motion Sickness just comes up. It does not stop coming up on like my shuffle, which is probably like Spotify being like, you want to listen to this, right? You want to listen to this. So like I do, but I can't listen to Spotify. It came up like 5 shuffles ago. But like it's really hard to deny just how good of a songwriter and how personal she is. I think it's a great brand, a great package deal. But yeah, I mean, I was just going to speak more on the artists themselves rather than the specific thing, because I feel like we've already kind of waxed poetic about the subject of death enough. Which, wait, no, right, we're good.
Well then, Tyler, why don't we move right along to the last song of the night, your song. What do you have for us?
This week I chose Teenage Parents by The Wonder Years. Feels appropriate. I feel like this was, at least at one point, one of Ben's favorite artists. And I would say that the Wonder Years are emo adjacent. They're an emo punk band, right? And I feel like they generally write about sad topics, or generally are pretty melancholy, though they don't always approach it in such a melancholy way. They definitely kind of have gotten more invested in that sort of sound. Especially with the Devil, not the Devil God, that's the Brand New album, which surprisingly no one covered Brand New in this section. Incredible. would have been a shoo-in for this challenge. What is the Wonder Years' newest album?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway,
I'm like 2 albums behind on their work,
and so I feel like the Wonder Years, they're definitely a band that they are okay with expressing who they are and telling stories that feel real and feel impactful, right? Whereas I feel like I've brought this up so many times. I feel like Blink-182 is still writing songs for like 12-year-olds. You know, like I feel like the Wonder Years, like the Menzingers, are both writing songs for like 20s, 30-year-olds, like that are really just kind of like going through the shit of it, right? And this song is a perfect example of that, right? You know, it's sort of telling the classic tale of sort of like 20-somethings just trying to make it through every day. You know, like they don't have a lot of money and they're sort of just doing the best with what they can. And like in a way, like it really sucks, but there's this feeling of like at least we have like each other, or we did have each other, or like the hope of having each other. And it's sort of like it's sad in that you're trying, but there's a sort of like there's a sort of optimism in it, right? Like it's not just like, oh, this sucks and it's never gonna better. Be like, man, it's going to get better. It has to get better. But compositionally, I mean, this is probably one of my favorite album of theirs, just because it feels the most dynamic and most sort of varied between songs. I think really the best part, you know, the song really is like the chef's kiss, is about the 3-minute mark that they take out the glockenspiel and just do like a little variation on sort of like the main like chord there. And it's such a nice moment that you don't expect at all from a band like this. And that's sort of like one of those moments that like if you were in like a place where you're not feeling great would make you tear up when they sort of like they play the little jingle and then they go right back into it. That's sort of like those dynamics just really get me. It's like you're being gripped by this moment and you're saying, not today, you know, like, or like, I'm gonna get through this, you know, it's sort of taking the moment and sort of taking control of it. And I think that's really like the moment that really makes it sort of gives you the kind of hope that you need to kind of get through whatever you're going through. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just good. It's good.
So to give a little bit of narrative context around this song, because I was, like Ben, very invested, though not nearly invested as he was in the Wonder Years.
It's fine.
The Greatest Generation is the 3rd album in a trilogy of concept albums about the upbringing of lead singer Dan Soupy Campbell. And this song is largely about his experience growing up in poverty in Pennsylvania. And it talks about his relationship with his parents and some of the memories he has about being a poor kid and how that is kind of traumatizing in its own way. And I really liked this song a lot when the record came out. It was one of my favorite songs on the record. Some of the other songs on here get a little like atheism preachy. Like there's some real like anger at religion on this record that is well placed, but I think it goes a little over the top. These more personal anecdote songs that he has on here, I feel like are where he really shines, like Tyler said, when he's telling his story. And to have these like deeply personal lyrics about things like my mother wore a sundress when she got married, she was too poor to own a wedding dress. And like to have that over a pop punk riff is like not what you expect. It is not all the small things. And I think that's what makes it so powerful. There are some lines in this song that will always be like embedded in my brain for how vivid the memory or how vivid the imagery is. Like, all we had was hand-me-downs, all we had was Goodwill. You know, like, if you were the kind of kid whose family shopped at Goodwill, you know how that felt. And the sleeping in front of the kerosene heater and your clothes will smell of smoke for weeks. Like, boy, what a moment, and what a like pull from adolescent embarrassment to just like throw into a song casually in a verse like that. Like, that had to be a very traumatizing experience to walk into school smelling like kerosene smoke. There's some real vivid sadness in this song that you can tell they're just like going all out to like just power through it, like all out catharsis, like admit it and move on because we cannot linger on this. It's too sad. And I like that. I think that's a cool feeling.
Yeah, when this first comes on, I was like, really? Sad? See where we're going to go with this one. Probably some sad boy, angsty high schoolerness. Where are you? Oh, I'm so sorry. Kind of thing. But then it doesn't. Then it talks about real human things, which is odd for me as a droid.
Important to
know. But no, I thought this was really good. I like it's interesting that we all picked like a different kind of sadness. You know, I like the heartfeltness of it. I have not listened to this album, and hearing what Taylor said, I'm probably not going to now. But I'm glad I heard this song because I feel like I like this kind of stuff because it almost like this is one of those interesting where it's like punk goes folk kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it tells the sad story, but it's like very much like like this song will turn a whole generation of people into people that in their older age really find solace in listening to a lot of Bob Dylan. You know, like that's what this will do. But I don't know. I think it's exactly kind of what Taylor said, and I think the reason that I like it is because it's relatable. We didn't grow up in a place that was like bad off, okay? Like where everybody worked at the factory, and when the factory closed, everybody was out of a job, and now, you know, like the worst of times happened. But at the same time, it wasn't like everybody that lived around us, honestly, a majority of people that lived around us lived, you know, poverty is a real thing. People that lived in poverty were very much among us. A lot of us probably had friends or knew somebody that lived in it. And that's sad, especially as we get older. I think the three of us in particular, like we can look back and say like, we're fortunate that our parents were able to put together enough for us to do stuff, be in scouting, get into college, read to us every night. You know, like I have my own family where parents work multiple jobs to try and make ends meet, you know, not just like savings accounts. I mean, make ends meet. And that's like it's sad, but it's also like a heroic thing to do too. You know what I mean? Like they didn't live in the house on the corner with the extra couple rooms and everything like that. You know, like it was a struggle. And I think it makes people stronger. And it's not like everybody does. It's not like just because like, like having a lack of resources is what makes people strong. I'm not one of those people that's like, well, you had it all, so you just don't know what it's like.
Bootstraps and all that.
Right, yeah. But I also feel like there's like a level of strength that comes with that in a way. I think when my wife was in graduate school and she was reading, I feel like I just keep going back on this, that there was like a book that they had to read in one of her critical studies classes that basically like one of the things that came out of it was that people that are an indicator of somebody who lives in, I don't want to say poverty, but I want to say with less means, often are like, I can fix that with this. You know, like, oh, the xylophone's broken, but I have a clothes hanger. We can make it work. Like, that's often an indicator of somebody who, like, in a certain way, that sort of ingenuity is driven by a particular sort of necessity, like thriftiness. Like nobody knows how to how to fix something until it's really, like if it's really broken and you can't replace it and you really need it, you'll figure out a way to do it. Like it just drives like that. And I think that's like, there's something that's a little sad about that. Like it kind of speaks to the inequity, and there's a lot of strength in that at the same time, if that makes sense. I don't know, maybe I'm just like talking here, but like there's it's like there's a balance, right? So there's like the strength in it and there's the weakness that it shows, but also when that weakness is strength and within the yin and yang kind of thing. But like, yeah, it is sad. When Bernie Sanders is labor secretary, we won't have these problems anymore, so I'm not that worried. But all right, well, with that awesome note, let's go to some notable B-sides for other sad songs you can use to, let's say, listen to and be sad, but then be optimistic about the better days that are to come. The silver linings.
Yeah, there you go. I have some that were honestly too sad for this playlist. Appointments by Julian Baker, which among other things is about being so depressed that you don't go to your therapy appointments. Woo, boy, that song is sad. What Sarah Said by Death Cab for Cutie, with one of the saddest lyrics I've ever heard, "Love is watching someone die." Fred Jones Part 2 by Ben Folds, which is about being laid off and losing all of your purpose to live.
Oh.
Also, Picture Window by Ben Folds, which is about a child with cancer.
Is there any backhand like Scott picks there at the end there, Taylor? Or is the
no, but I will also just as like a random unexpected pick, Ampersand by Amanda Palmer.
There you go.
Because I feel like we haven't given her any love on this podcast, and she deserves it.
Well, at some point. This week, I would say I probably chose the appropriate amount of B-sides. As opposed to like my like 10 song like B-sides I've been doing the last couple episodes. This one's short. Pressed to Death by Illuminati Hotties. And
awesome band name.
Yeah, it's great. You should listen to her. She's great. And a real on the nose, really, really embracing the emo side of things. Welcome to the Black Parade.
Not their saddest song, but okay.
Not their saddest song, but I wanted to do it for the bit, because I feel like it is the sort of like sad boy Bohemian Rhapsody, and you can't change my mind.
You want to put that on the record that this is the sad boy Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah, why not? What do you got, Sean?
Okay. All right. Let's see. So I have a song called Michelle by Sir Chloe. Probably, and there's so much AFI I could put on here. Just start. I think Silver and Cold by AFI. Probably just put that one on it. That's pretty good. I think.
I mean, I didn't listen to any Smiths, but I feel like every song by the Smiths could be on here. Like,
just put The Cure. Just put all the Cure discography on there. It'll be fine. This will probably come up at some point in time on this, but I'm really in love with Idol's new album, so probably Model Village. Kind of speaking to Tyler's song a little bit about, like, you know, your hometown and it kind of ragging on it a little bit, being sad about it. And then I think probably one of my, like, deeper picks for sad songs, if you want something about relationships, Sophia by Clairo.
There you go. Good pick.
Ooh, that song is great.
Oh yeah, fantastic song. Absolutely love that song. Pristine by Snail Mail.
Also good.
I just have so many B-sides tonight. And then, man, I had another one. Okay, so you probably have to bleep this one out, but the song is called Fucked Up by Camp Howard. It's got some cool tempo changes in there, and it's also a sad song. Not that sad. Cool sad song. Fun to listen to. Good to run to for being a sad song. But so is Girls Not Grey. So, I don't know. Just put it out there. It's not always bad to have a nice sad run. A cathartic sad run.
Well, Tyler, if people want to repress their emotions with you, where can they do that?
I actually just thought of a great song that I probably would have picked had I remembered. Hold Me Down by Motion City Soundtrack.
Ooh, good one.
I'm going to go ahead and put that in my pocket for later. Hey everybody, you can find my design and illustration work at rudepets.club, and as always, you can find me on socials as Rudepets Club on Instagram and Twitter. And special little shout out real quick, I have a bumper sticker over on the McElroy family's website. It's for Knights Templar 2 Wacky Wizards. It took me a long time to make, and it's really sick, so you should go buy it.
McElroymerch.com.
There you go. Thank you.
Links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Sean, if people want to go for a sad run with you, where can they do that?
Oh man, we can go on a sad run and go down to the beach and write messages and put them in a bottle. And you can find me over on it. And the Police are kind of a sad band too, aren't they? You can find me on Instagram at TellySean.
And if you want to stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning with your smart lights set to gradients of blue with me, you can tweet at me at TC Olstead. I'm sure I'll be doing that one night this week. And all of these songs will be added to the No Repeat podcast playlist on Apple Music and Spotify. And we'll be back next week with a less sad episode of No Repeat.